What's up, fellas? In the first video of the day, I'm going to be going through and looking at some of the biggest NBA rumors of the week. I typically do this about once a week, and we've got some really cool ones this week talking about some offseason stuff, not only for this offseason, but for the following, free agency stuff, trade stuff, all different kinds of little rumors going around right now in the NBA that I want to talk about that have kind of come out this week. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day on this channel, so it's a great place for the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. If you're new here, by the way, what's up? My name is Tucker. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well, and you can check me out at various socials in a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's go ahead and talk about some of these rumors. First up, the New York Knicks. There are rumors going around that players around the league and the league in general are starting to respect the Knicks in a different way, right? So we've had this understanding that the Knicks are a free agency destination. It's been the case for a long time. Ever since NBA free agency became a legit pathway towards creating really good teams and potential super teams and signing big max contract level players in free agency, the Knicks have been at the top of the list. They've never quite been able to capitalize on that. Joakim Noah, Amari Stoudemire are names that come to mind, but like LeBron, would take a visit but never actually go. Handful of other guys, Kevin Durant, things like that. But the Knicks, not only because of this season, but because of the competence level that they've shown in the front office, the coaching, some of the pieces they have on the roster, they're starting to increase in relevance in free agency outside of just being the Knicks. There are players thinking out loud about what it would be like to play in New York, not just to play in Madison Square Garden, not just to play for the Knicks, not just to try and make the Knicks a really good team for the first time in a long time, but because of the desirability of the franchise as a competent organization, even outside of the prestige that playing for the Knicks and being a part of the Knicks provides. And that is a huge step in the right direction. It's one of the reasons why this season, the season they've had so far, as surprising as it has been, has kind of held a parallel to those Nets teams that, were there right before KD and Kyrie got there, and those Clippers teams right before Kawhi and PG got there, right? The Knicks are on that path. I don't know if the free agency stars are going to align necessarily the exact same way that they did for the Clippers or for the Nets, just given some of the guys out there, but it is important to note that there are rumors going around that players are respecting the Knicks as a free agency destination, even beyond just the prestige and the notoriety of the organization, and that is a huge, massive, cannot overstate it step forward for New York, for the Knicks. And honestly, I'm rooting for it. I'm all for it. If they want to sign a couple of guys in free agency over the next couple of years, I'm all in. The Knicks are fun. I was dead wrong about Thibodeau being the right coach or being the wrong coach for this team. The front office seems competent. I'm all in right now on the Knicks being good. Speaking of free agency, as we move on to our second rumor, one that I'm going to be honest, I didn't really think too much about. We've been talking about the Bulls a good amount lately, right? How they're supposed to level up this roster, how good Zach LaVine has been this year specifically, but over the last couple of years, the Nikola Vucevic edition. And I think we all kind of forgot Zach LaVine's a 2022 free agent, by the way. And this rumor is that he is expected to explore his options in the summer of 2022. He's not expected to sign an extension with Chicago prior to that offseason, and that makes total sense to me. Zach LaVine has graduated and elevated from a player that maybe would start looking at making sure he gets as much money as he can prior to free agency to being a legit, highly coveted guy going into his prime, going into the prime of his career with this next contract, and certainly being a max level guy as a really good perimeter creator and scorer. And I think we're quickly approaching a scenario in which Zach LaVine is looking around and thinking, is Chicago the best place for me to be? I'm sure he loves being there, and it's where he's really grown as a player. But with the way the NBA is now, if you're not providing great opportunities for your stars, if they don't feel happy, the threshold for guys that are allowed to just move around and jump to a whole bunch of different teams as stars is pretty low. And Zach LaVine is certainly one of those guys that if we get to 2022 free agency and he doesn't see a long-term fit in Chicago, he's going to be a big-time free agent. And I'm going to be honest, when I was thinking about 2022 free agency, I made a video about this months ago. His name did not come to mind, and that's especially scary for Chicago. One, because obviously you don't want to lose Zach LaVine. Two, because it just creates this kind of cloud over your team. And three, they just traded away their pick this year as well as in 2023 to go out and get Nikola Vucevic. And if Zach LaVine leaves in 2022, that's obviously a huge issue. Now, Zach LaVine being a 2022 free agent and being expected to explore his options there, and Zach LaVine actually leaving Chicago in 2022 are two different things. But it's just a reminder that LaVine is a 2022 free agent. He is going to be allowed to make some moves there, and it does not appear as though he is expected to sign a contract extension before we get there. Something to keep in mind. Not to scare you Bulls fans, just something to keep in mind. Next up, speaking of a guy with, a big contract, Washington. We've talked a couple of times about the Bradley Beal trade situation. I personally think that this offseason or prior to the next trade deadline, Bradley Beal is going to get moved. Russell Westbrook is the other part of this, though. And there are rumors going around that if they do move on from Beal this offseason, they're going to at least attempt to move Westbrook along with him. Now, again, not necessarily surprising. If Beal does get moved, obviously the direction of the franchise would be completely shifted, and that would likely involve a Westbrook deal. The problem is, how feasible is it to actually move Westbrook? We saw how difficult it was to get him moved in the first place. John Wall was one of the only guys in the entire league that Westbrook could have been traded for. And as you look around the league for other contracts, other options that would allow you to move the 44 or 47, depending on the year, $1 million deal that Russell Westbrook is on, it's going to be difficult. It's not at all surprising that they are willing to and open to the idea of trading him, assuming that Beal does end up leaving. But it could be a situation where they might even have to give up a first-round pick just to move Westbrook, just given the complete lack of options. If they just completely wanted to reset, just get him off the roster. We've talked about this before with Washington, where Westbrook's options are going to be either to waste away in Washington, try and find a trade situation or a buyout situation, or opt out of $47 million and opt out of his contract a year early. Those are pretty much going to be the options. I'm sure Washington will explore all of those, but it is worth noting that if Beal does get moved, which again, I think will happen this offseason or prior to the next trade deadline, Westbrook could be right behind him as well. Speaking of trades, Lonzo Ball is one of the most interesting free agents of this offseason, a restricted free agent, and there's starting to be some momentum behind this idea of Lonzo being involved in a potential sign and trade this offseason. That might be one of the reasons why New Orleans ended up hanging on to him past the trade deadline. Not necessarily that they're guaranteed to re-sign him themselves, but that they could be looking to get value out of him via a sign and trade in the offseason. Now, restricted free agency sign and trades can be a little bit tricky, as can all sign and trades, but I think this just adds to this idea that Lonzo is going to be a relatively coveted free agent. Guys that can defend and can play on and off the ball and can shoot and are young are going to be valuable, and that's exactly what Lonzo is. Now, granted, it's not an ideal summer in which to be a free agent, given what is generally, it's going to be not necessarily a lack of cap space, but there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be wanting to spend a ton, given the circumstances of how everything is right now. But the exception to that should be some of these restricted guys, him, Lauri Markkanen, Jared Allen, a handful of others, that are going to be getting a lot of attention. Lonzo in somewhere like Chicago, I think personally will be interesting. Maybe we see a Kobe White, Lonzo Ball sign and trade situation. I don't know. Kind of trying to figure out what the contract would ultimately be for Lonzo as well, as something to keep an eye on. But just the rumor here is Lonzo sign and trade is possible. And the last up in terms of the rumors, a little bit weird. We don't normally talk about this kind of stuff. The Timberwolves recently got purchased, and there's been a lot of rumors prior to the purchase as well as afterwards of them possibly moving, not being in Minnesota anymore. And every rumor, every single piece of information I looked into says the Timberwolves are not going anywhere. They're going to stay in Minnesota. They're not going to relocate. They're not going to go to a different team. They're not going to be going to a different city. They're not going to be going to Seattle. That was apparently part of the purchase. It was contingent on the team staying where it is. Now, I don't know if that's guaranteed. I don't know if that's in writing or just like a handshake. Hey, please keep the team here. But for all intents and purposes, it appears as though the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be exactly that moving forward, even with this new ownership group. Again, kind of weird that we would talk about that, but I feel like it was something that needed to be kind of mentioned here. So those are the rumors of the week. As always, if you guys have more you want to send me, just hit me up on Twitter. Say, hey, Tucker, check this out. This is kind of crazy. And I'll absolutely put it in one of these videos. First up, the Knicks being increasingly competent is helping their free agency chances. Zach LaVine being a 2022 free agent, which kind of blew my mind, by the way. The Wizards potentially looking to move on from Westbrook in addition to Beal this offseason. Lonzo potential sign and trade, and the Timberwolves being sold, but not moving from Minnesota as a franchise. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you can check out more videos from me. The boxes on screen as well as on the channel as a whole. You can leave a like rating on this video as well as others if you're enjoying them. And if you want to hang out with me outside of these videos, there's plenty of options for you to be able to do that. Just check out the link in the description below. Tons of different socials. You want to ask me questions, send me a message, hang out with me in live streams, all that stuff. There are certainly options there if that's something that you want to do. With all those things said, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Monday. Hope this was a good start to your week. I'll see you guys later today in the second video of the day where we're talking about some Michael Porter Jr. stuff where he has been playing extremely well. And yeah, like I said, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.